Welcome in, listener. You're listening to a segment from the Slumpbuster podcast with Ju-Ju Dre. Find the full episode on Spotify, iTunes, the Google Play Store, or our YouTube channel. Enjoy.
We mentioned his name kind of last week. Actually, I think it was you that mentioned Lavar Ball in passing, but he decided to take Lamelo to an alternate route. Lithuania didn't really pay off, but apparently New Zealand is really doing Lamelo some good. He's been balling out in their league for the last couple of games. In fact, he went apparently toe-to-toe with one of the best defensive players that New Zealand has to offer. And a lot of people say he worked him. So now that's led to this development that Lamelo is apparently being considered as the number one draft pick in next year's NBA drafts, which did we think we'd be saying this after everything that Ball family has kind of put out there in the media over the last couple of years?
Yeah, so I definitely did not think that people would consider Lamelo that high anyways. So I figured that he still has talent, right? He's a very good shooter. Offensively, he's a fantastic player. But we've seen some of the holes in his game when he was playing in Lithuania and off the ball series. And then obviously, like, LeVar Ball is a distraction for a lot of people, right? He's running his mouth about organizations, their coaches. He thinks his kids are always the best, right? And so,
I think most parents probably should.
You should, right? Like, you definitely should have your child's back, but you also shouldn't say that they're better than Steph Curry when, they haven't played a single second in the NBA, right? So,
or have a broken shot like what's his name? I don't even remember.
Lonzo, where you pull it from the left side of your body, right, your left hip, and shoot over your right shoulder. Like, that's probably not the best form for a guard to have. And so, I thought with all of that, I thought it was too much of a distraction. I didn't think very many teams would be interested. So I'm pretty surprised by it.
Yeah, I mean, he looks the part. It's crazy, like, to see, obviously, since they've been in the public eye for the last few years, to kind of like see how that guy's grown into a full grown-ass man. Like, he's a monster. I was like looking at like some of the like pics they're sending out there in the media. I'll put it this way. I wouldn't want to run into Lamelo Ball in a dark alley. The guy is a beast. So you could tell that some of the trainers, especially since New Zealand, it's a pro league. So he's with pro trainers. He is with former NBA players out there. So they're teaching him the right ways to train for the pro game. We talked about it kind of when we were talking about USA basketball, but the international game has really been catching up to the US game in the last few years. Some of the way they've been developing some of their guys is years ahead of where our guys are getting trained nowadays in the league. We mentioned Dennis Smith Jr. is like one of the prominent players in the previous week's headline, but Dennis Smith Jr. didn't really come out of the college game looking anywhere near like Luka Doncic, certainly. So playing against other pros. So some of these guys coming around the world have really changed the game, and I think it's only going to continue at this rate.
Yeah, no, I thought that was an interesting point that you brought up, and I was actually thinking along the same lines, right? Especially because we saw USA basketball not even placed in the top 7 of the world. Do people start to give a little bit more weight to this overseas competition? And so maybe LeVar was onto something that, hey, maybe NCAA is not the end-all, be-all, right? Like, yes, that's sort of the best league for American NBA or NBA level type players, right? As they work their way up through the college system. And then you can take your best, the pick of the best right there. But maybe these guys overseas are just as good. And so LeVar might be onto something by saying, hey, I'm going to take my kids, right, and possibly others, people's kids, to go play overseas where they are still playing at that pro level. And we've seen that their pro level can just be just as good as, Team USA's. Now, granted, we didn't have all our superstars, and I think it's a very different story if you have your Steph Currys, your Kevin Durant's, and Kyrie's and all that. Like, without a doubt, I don't think we lose if we have all of our top tier NBA players. But there's still something to say that Team USA didn't even place in the top 5, even with NBA level players. And so, I 100% think that Lamelo and LeVar did what they had to do. And I think it might be another future path for a lot of people. Yeah, and it's cool to go overseas.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's just, again, going back to Lamelo, though, being at the top of the draft, we know which teams are going to be at the top of the draft. Like, the NBA makes no bones about it. Like, we've seen the same teams at the top of the draft basically for the last 20 years. It's going to be interesting where Lamelo could potentially end up because we're probably going to be talking about the Knicks there. We're probably going to be talking about the Suns there, the Charlotte Hornets. The usual suspects are going to be at the top of the draft. We mentioned about the drama when it comes to Lavar. Do you think that could play a role in where he goes?
So here's what I'm going to say, and I've got my conspiracy theory, right? I think that some things in the NBA can be rigged. I think they're still a fun league to watch, right? I think they're one of the best entertainment leagues when it comes to sports, right? They have quite a bit of viewers. And so it's September 27th, right? I just want to go on record saying this. I think he's going to end up a New York Knick. And the reason being is Lavar and the Ball family have this big aura around them. When they were talking about, oh, Lonzo's going to the Lakers ended up in the perfect position to draft Lonzo, right? And everybody was saying Markelle Fultz, right, was going to be number one unanimously. Markelle Fultz. And so Markelle Fultz goes above Lonzo. Lonzo falls, lands right where Lavar wanted him. And so the Ball family, I think they just belong in that big market. Lonzo, everybody sort of saw as a bust. And so now he's shipped away to New Orleans. And
is he a bust?
He does everything very well except for shoot, right? That's the one thing.
Which, is an NBA player.
Exactly. And in today's day and age, right, people want to see good shots, right? Like, so even though you have a lot of guys that are technically point guards, they don't play like point guards. But nobody wants to see your Jason Kidd type point guards anymore that can't shoot threes from, half court. So Lonzo's, shipped out of LA. The LA, thing, it generated quite a bit of revenue though, and it got the Ball family their own TV show. And so I think the NBA is going to make it to where the Knicks will be able to land Lamelo. The Knicks are going to draft Lamelo because it's going to bring a lot of people, a lot of viewers. You're going to have all your overseas viewers watching, the Chinese viewers, right? The guys from New Zealand that watch Lamelo. And then the Ball family is going to be able to continue their show. It's going to bring in a lot of revenue. So that's just my theory. I think the Knicks will get him.
I just have my mind thinking of all the jerseys that Knicks fans have bought prematurely. And I'm thinking about all the potential New York Knicks Lamelo Ball jerseys they're going to sell over the next few months, and then watch. They're not going to get.
You mean you didn't buy a Zion Williamson New York Knicks jersey?
I can't say I made that investment, albeit I think I could finally find some on clearance for about $5 nowadays.
Oh, I'm sure you could. Now something I will say. So you brought up an interesting point when we were talking about this offline and off air, is that we had talked about, does he really fit in the system? I don't think that it matters for New York. I think they just want to bring in the revenue. There's going to be lots of profits. People are going to tune in to watch LaMelo. And honestly, even though LeVar's a loudmouth and a lot of people hate him, you'll tune in because you either love the way that he acts, right, and you love his antics, or you hate him, so you want to see LaMelo fail, and you want to watch because you're like, hey, I'm gonna see LaMelo fail. I'm gonna tell you that I told you so.
Wait, you mean to tell me the New York Knicks are going to not make a decision based strictly on basketball acumen on the court?
It will. I know. I'm shocked. I'm just as shocked as you, Ju-Ju. But they will 100% choose it. I guarantee, just off revenue.